Live from a grungy kitchen table located in Annapolis, Maryland's scenic and historic capital, it's the Maryland Crabs Podcast. With each episode, your hosts, Tim Hamilton, John Fernay, and the occasional guest will dive in and pick apart the stuff that really matters most to you. We're too lazy to actually solve any of these problems, but we can definitely stir the pot. From schools, politics, parking in the fire lane, to those horrible people who drive BMWs. And here with this week's episode, live from the kitchen table, Tim Hamilton and John Fernay.
Hey there, it's the Maryland Crabs. This is John Fernay, and Tim Hamilton is on assignment. I'm not supposed to lie to you guys, so he's not on assignment. He's at home waiting for a stupid furniture delivery that was supposed to be there hours ago. Didn't show up, so I went out and I talked to our guest today by myself. For me, this is one of the most fascinating episodes that we've done. I talked to an icon in Annapolis. I talked to an icon in the state of Maryland, talked to the owner of a world-renowned establishment, learned a lot of history and a lot about what it takes to be a success, not just in business, but a success in today's world. I traveled up to Ted Levitt's house. Ted was the owner of Chicken Ruth's Deli in Annapolis until about a week ago, and we wanted to talk to him about his experiences in Annapolis over the last 50 years, what he's seen, what's changed, and how Chicken Ruth's grew from just a little small deli that his father opened up into, quite honestly, a world-renowned establishment here in the heart of Annapolis, the capital of Maryland. So sit back, relax, and enjoy almost an hour with the fascinating, the unique, the one-of-a-kind Ted Levitt.
Whether it's Main Street, your street, or any street in the county that we all live in and love and call Anne Arundel, it's a special place. But part of living here is having a bank that provides what you need when you need it. So when your plans and dreams call for a bank, turn to us, your neighbor. We're Severn Bank, supporting the community that supports us. I'm Alan Hyatt, chairman of Severn Bank, and it's our honor to be the bank that serves the people of Anne Arundel County. One thing that we never forget is that as a member of this community, it's our responsibility to be committed to helping you and our county thrive. Like you, we live here, we work here, and we play here. Severn Bank, we're here with you.
Online at severnbank.com. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender. Severn Bank is a trade name used by Severn Savings Bank.
I'm here in the living room of a legend. Okay, you're gonna laugh at that, but and you probably don't see it. But I'm here with Ted Levitt, who is enjoying his pseudo third or fourth day of retirement.
Yes.
And thank you very much for agreeing to talk with us and to talk a little bit about the passing of the guard, is that the word? Changing of the guard at Chicken Ruth's, which has been a staple in Annapolis for 52 years now.
Thank you.
It's certainly not a place that you could eat every single day of the year, certainly the milkshake challenge, but I know that if I don't go into Chicken Ruth's a dozen times a year, something was wrong for the year. It's always got good solid food, lunches, the pickles, and everything else. And I go for the staff because I think that's really a little bit of Annapolis there. First of all, super congratulations on the sale and the retirement. I understand where'd you get your start in Chicken Ruth? I mean, obviously I know Chick is your father and Ruth was your mother, and they brought it here from Baltimore in 1965. 65.
Yep. They opened up August 16th, 1965. My uncle had told him about a little lunch counter. It was basically just a counter and some tables. The front had like magazine racks and different things you could buy. And so there's no tables in the front when you walk in. You walk in, you get up to the register, little racks of stuff, and then the register, and then you'd have some little bit of tables on the side, about 20-some seats, and then the counter. And the upstairs area where we sit now is just a storage room.
Okay.
It was a kitchen way back when, but with a fireplace in it, but it was just a storage room. And they started working, and I remember on Sunday morning because of I don't know if it was the blue law or just what it was, but a blue law was there for a while where you couldn't open on Sundays. In the beginning, they weren't open Sundays, and I remember my mom would sit home and count the receipts because she'd take all the money home every Saturday night. And some days she'd be sitting there crying. My dad was, "What's wrong? We don't have enough money to pay the bills." I mean, it was just empty. There was probably 20 stores on Main Street empty in the 60s, mid-60s. Yeah. And it was just a slow little sleepy town. 3 o'clock on any given day, even Saturday and Sunday, you shoot a cannon up Main Street. You wouldn't have to worry about hitting anybody. And they just started out then.
Now, did they actually buy the building?
So they bought the business in 1965 from a fella. Like I say, it was just like a soda fountain. Had a couple sandwiches, 3 or 4 sandwiches and soda fountain stuff on the counter. Then they made it to what it was. But then in 1968, Charlie Bernstein, and they owned that building. It was a pharmacy way back when. It was built in 1899, 1900. And it was a little sandwich shop then. Or actually, it was a pharmacy and with a soda fountain. A pharmacy and a soda fountain. Upstairs was a hotel called the Germania Hotel. And they call him Old Man Bernstein. But the father, he had a wooden leg from what I understand from the war. I never met him, but I met Bernstein, his son. As far as I recollect. I mean, this is all from, I was a little kid, 8 years old back then. When my dad bought the store, within a week or so, Mr. Bernstein would come in, and they had meetings in the back of the seating area, and on the wall in the back by table 1, there's a picture of that meeting. It was, I think, called the Touchdown Club. And Bernstein and all these people from all prominent business people would be there in the back and meet in the restaurant for what they called a Touchdown Club every week. I don't know what day it was, but Greensfield was one of them, and a bunch of other people. So anyway, he walked in the store, and because he would eat there all the time, and he said, "Chick, if you want, you should buy the building. That way you don't have to worry about rent, and I'll sell it to you for $35,500." My dad said, "I can't afford it." A man named Mr. Horn gave my dad the money to buy the building. He worked for him as a delivery guy for delivering clothes in the Pikes Peak Cleaners in Baltimore when my dad was a kid. And he really admired my dad for his work ethic. So when he went to buy the store, he was talking to Mr. Horn one day, and said, "I don't know if the bank will loan him money," and he's working on it. He says, "Don't even go to the bank. How much do you need?" And he gave him the full amount for the restaurant. So he bought the restaurant, was paying Mr. Horn back. And kind of stepping back from buying the building in 68, my dad had his first heart attack. He bought it in August, and his first heart attack was in November. Back then, it was an angina attack. Today, you'd be on a treadmill the next day. Back then, in the 60s, they didn't know. Right. He was in the hospital 3 months and home for 3 months in bed, which was probably not good. But when he came back to work finally after 6 months, or while he was in the hospital, Mr. Horn visited him, and they said, "Don't worry, we're never going to miss a payment." Mr. Horn said, No. Ruth's going to run the restaurant while you're going. He says, "You don't have to make any payments. You wait till you get back and you get on your feet, then you'll start making payments." But my mother and father never missed a payment to Mr. Horn.
You know, there's not many banks or people that would do something like that.
Oh, no. Today. It was the whole thing in the restaurant was nothing but from the old days. I mean, it's a throwback to what people were. You give a handshake and your word was it. Almost never, and up to this day, almost never have I ever had to use an attorney for anything. People I dealt with just the way my dad did. And I believe that because of my dad and the way he did things and kind of the way I followed through what he did, people trusted you and allowed you to do it. And I myself even to this day, did almost everything up until the sale of this business, which was a complete cluster with lawyers and accountants, and which was a great thing. It was a good experience. It was all positive. Sure. But that's the first time in my life ever that I really have to deal with attorneys.
As opposed to a handshake.
To a handshake. My dad bought the business that way, like you say, and then he made payments, and then it's back to Mr. Bernstein. He came in and he said, "Yeah, I can't afford it." Well, 3 years later, he went to Mr. Bernstein, and Mr. Horn came to my dad first and told him, said, "Chick, you really need to buy the building if you can. And don't worry, I'll help you out." And with that, a couple weeks later after the conversations, he was starting to think about it. Mr. Bernstein came in the store. My dad said, "I'd like to buy the building, but I don't know what the price is now, if I can afford it, but if I can, I'd like to buy it." He said, "Chick, what did I tell you 3 years ago when you first came here?" I said, "I gave you a price." And he said, "That price will always be the same for you. If I give you the first offer to buy it, and if I sell it to somebody else, it'll be more. But whenever you wanted to buy it, it would never change." That's the way people were. And my dad said, "Really?" He said, "Yep." Went to Mr. Horn, got the money, gave it to Mr. Bernstein for the same price he offered him 3 years prior.
Now, you started how old were you when you first...
Well, my dad opened when I was 8, and I literally started working just about every single weekend I came in. Because I loved the store. I just wanted to work with my dad back then. I had no clue what work was, really, I don't think, at 8 years old. I just knew I wanted to come in and impress my dad and mom.
And what, that was just to be with your mom and dad?
Yeah. So I would come in, I'd bust tables, literally with it. By the time I was 10 years old, I was working on the grill. And I don't mean like kids come in and play. I was working. My mom was teaching. A lady named Mae McCready was there. She's the one that saved my dad and made it what it was. Because the guy we bought the store from, what was his name, Milton Chepp. He was known. He'd buy a business, keep it 3-4 years, sell it, buy one, sell it. That I know of, he had 4 or 5 of them in the first so many years that we were in Annapolis, or the first 10 or 15. He'd every 4 or 5 years buy a business and sell it. For after a few years, he had a shoe store down the street. He had a grocery store in Eastport. I don't think he owned any more than 5 years, but maybe I'm a little off on the timing. But we bought the store. They signed the papers on a Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken, August 16th. I think it was a Tuesday. Signed the papers, and yep, supposed to be there for 30 days working with him. Never showed up a day. My dad had no clue where to buy anything, had no clue how to slice meats, knew nothing about the restaurant business at all.
So your dad had no restaurant experience going.
He had a bar before that.
Okay.
A bar with a partner in Baltimore, and so he had no clue how to run anything. And Mae McCready. Mac McCready was her husband. She had a son that was a captain in the police department. And if it wasn't for Mae McCready, he would have no clue what to do. She taught him how to slice meats, where to order everything. And that fella actually told my dad, when you take over the restaurant, people don't listen to new people. You need to fire everybody, especially that woman Mae. She'll never listen to you at all. She don't listen to anybody. And luckily, he didn't listen to him. And the advice just opposite I gave the new owner here. He asked me questions about all the staff. I said, tell you what, I think what you need to do, I know a lot of companies come in and clean house for whatever reason. And that's what Chet told my dad, and luckily he didn't, because Mae McCready saved his life. And she actually was partly responsible for what we were today. She worked with my dad for another 20-some years before she passed. And I told the new owner, Keith, I said, I think what you need to do, I can tell you everything about the employees. He said, I really just want to know the good things about them. I'll find out the bad. But I did tell him things that you need to know about everybody. I said, but with that said, I think there's everybody you need to keep. They know what's going on. They're what's the plate. They're what is the plate. They're what the place is all about.
I've always thought that your two largest assets in any business are certainly not your equipment or the building. It's the people that work for you and your customers.
Absolutely. So and he all along he is from the same mindset as I am. He planned on keeping everybody and plans on keeping everybody. Somebody might go by the wayside for whatever reason, but overall he wants to keep everybody because he knows what they are. He's been a customer for a while. He's seen them all. So and there's certain people that I'm like, hey, these are key people you need. You might think you don't. But these people are key. They know what's going on, and they love the place. It's not just that they work hard. It's that they have their heart and soul in it, just like I did. So you want to keep them. So I'm sure he will. But so the restaurant evolved. My dad did well. I worked there every single weekend. Most days after school, I'd ride my bike down and put my bike in the car and come home with my parents. Went first to Germantown.
Okay.
First couple of years, Germantown Elementary. Then I went to Parole. Then Annapolis Junior High. And then Annapolis Senior High. Okay. And I graduated actually a year early high school. I said, either you let me graduate, I'm going to quit. And I wasn't going to quit.
So Annapolis High, was that Maryland Hall at that time?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Just the Maryland Hall, yeah. Didn't have the other building.
Right.
And I graduated a year early, again, only because I wanted to work for my dad. After I graduated in June, and then Christmas comes along, New Year's Day, I walk in. My dad said, what are you doing here? I said, well, I'm working. So New Year's Day is a busy day. He said, no, you're not working anymore. He says, you need to get an education. My dad only went to the 8th grade. He could not read and write. He said that you don't come back until you have a degree. I don't care if you become a doctor, lawyer, or plumber. Get a degree in something, so if something happens at a restaurant, you have something to fall back on. So I'm like, what am I going to do? So I went to community college. 3 weeks later, flunked out because I couldn't keep up, because I couldn't read and write. We realized I was tested. I was very dyslexic and had a 6th grade reading level with 30% comprehension. But yet they let me graduate high school in 11th grade. How that happened and how that got through the cracks, I don't know, but I did.
It's a mystery.
Yeah. So I had similar problems that my dad had, learning disabilities. But I made it up in other ways. Like my dad, he was uneducated book-wise, but the smartest man you ever want to meet. Had common sense and a work ethic. And that's what he taught me, along with my mom, obviously, the same thing. So I went to a tutor for a year. And then because I couldn't really go to a traditional college, I went to CIA, cooking school. Okay. 80% is hands-on, so I didn't have to worry about reading and writing too much.
That's up in New York?
It's in Hyde Park, New York.
Right.
So I did 2 years there, got my culinary degree, and I came back, again, finished early, skipped my internship, skipped the summer break, stayed all the way through, year and a half instead of 2 years, came back in November. We finished up right before the Christmas holidays. New Year's Day, again, 2 years later. What are you doing here? Like a broken record. I'm like, I'm working. He said, no, you need a degree. That's a degree in restaurant. That'll help you in the restaurant. But what happens if something happens? You need to have something else to fall back on. Okay, so then figured I got stuck in Hyde Park, New York, a cooking school that I thought would be great, because cooking school, women cook, right? But I was wrong. Men are chefs, not women. At 18, I didn't know that. Uh-huh. So I went to a school that was basically an all-guys school. So I said, that's not going to happen again. So I went to Florida International, which is now near Miami in Florida, Fort Lauderdale. So got to be a ton of girls down there. So that's where I'm going to school, to the beach, to have a good time. So I went down there, did have a good time, but I got a degree in accounting, a bachelor's degree. Okay. So then he was happy when I came back.
Then he let you work?
So then I came back in 1979, and he let me work 6 days a week, from 1979 till today.
Sounds to me like you had the toughest time getting a job at Chicken Roost.
Exactly. Didn't want to hire me. I had to earn it. Yeah.
Through there was the guy. So you've been in there since pretty much 8 years old. And you've got 3 children, right? Two. Scott and Lauren.
I have Scott and Lauren, and we have pretty much all but legally adopted a young man that we sponsored at the academy. My son met him at NAPS when he was at NAPS, Navy Prep School, and he asked if we would sponsor him, and we did. And he didn't have children. He was on the street like at 7. Amazing young man. He 7 or 8 schools until he was in high school, through high school, and then he applied to the academy. He was a double E major, did very well, and so basically he's like an adopted son.
Okay.
Jerry Brooks. He's in the Navy still, down in Charleston. And then Lauren, my daughter, she's 33. She was always in theater. She worked in the store part-time a little bit, but more so she did a lot of theater, almost any musical.
She did Summer Garden Theater, didn't she?
She did almost every theater around here and in Baltimore big time, and almost any musical you could think of she was in and had a lead role in. She was really good, is really good. And then she went to New York, went to Florida State, went to London for a while. She worked there as a stage manager. Then she came back here and she was a stage manager for Sigourney Weaver in New York City for a while. And then became a business manager of theater. Then actually did a couple Broadway shows, had some small things. And then stayed in the business end of the theater. But then decided to get out of theater. Now she's in real estate. Her and Beth, my wife, both took real estate classes a couple years ago and got their license in Maryland. But Lauren went back to New York. And is doing that full time, and she does really well. She has her own place in Brooklyn, and she's doing that. And Scott, he grew up working in the store a little bit also, but where Lauren spent a lot of her time in theater, Scott spent a ton of his time as an EMT. The day he turned 16, paramedic the day he turned 18, became a paramedic in Baltimore City for a while, and then he went to med school. Now he's an ER doc. Was in Toledo where he met his wife, is where he did his residency, and somebody made a great offer to him in Oregon, and he's now an ER doc in Oregon, just moved into a beautiful new home, and him and his wife are doing that out there.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So they had strong interests that pulled them, I wouldn't say away from the restaurant.
Yeah, but in different ways.
In different ways, and just as you...
And my dad really never wanted me to work in the restaurant full time. He wanted me to do something else, because it's hard work. It's a lot of hours. I won't say hard work. It's just work, but it's a lot of hours. A lot of responsibility, day and night, 7 days a week. But if you love it, it doesn't matter.
You used to be 24/7.
We did. When a year before I graduated high school, my dad knew for sure there was no ifs, ands, or buts, because I was getting out of high school a year early to do just that, work in the restaurant. So with that, now you're going to have 2, not full families because I wasn't married, but 2 people to feed or an extra person because I was going to go out on my own, not live at home at some point. But now you're going to have 2 families to feed because when I do get married, you need it. So I figured we better start figuring a way to make more money. So we opened up in 1973, 24 hours a day.
And that lasted until
2000.
Right.
My dad, mom passed away at 55 in 1985, and my dad passed away at 67 in 1995. So I kept it going for 5 years, and it was just a bear. Work ethics from the 1960s when I started till today or till then have just changed drastically. There's not the same work ethic.
I see that from 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
Exactly. I mean, and it's changed drastically as time goes on. When you have something that's breaking, the shaft is bending a little bit, it bends, and towards the end it bends quicker and faster.
Yep.
Well, that's the same. The work ethics are changing the last 5-10 years drastically. Like a lot of things going on in this country, there's some major issues, and we got to get it on track.
Right. Now, you said that you had apartments upstairs when your father bought the building, and that's now the Scott Lauer Inn.
Yes.
Which was that under your watch?
So, kind of. Me and my dad. Okay. It was the Germania Hotel when it opened up in 1900. They actually had a hotel up there, 10 rooms. And back in the days, all the hotels shared baths in the hallways. So they had 10 rooms, 5 rooms, 6 rooms, 12 rooms. 12 rooms, 6 on each floor, 2 bathrooms, 1 on each floor. And then during the war in the 40s, nobody rented rooms, so Mr. Bernstein forced to make it into a rooming house. Stayed that way I think they rented 2-floor apartments also at some time. So when my dad bought the building, it was just that. We ran it, and I would go up every day. After school, I would come. On weekends, my first job was to go upstairs and sweep and mop the halls and clean the bathrooms. Because it was 2 bathrooms on each floor and the hallways and 12 rooms. And it was like $15 a week. At some point, near the end, it was $25 a week, and people just lived there. That's what, they wasn't renting by the night or anything. They were living there. They rented a room by the week, by the month. It was $25 a week or $100 a month, which some months you had more weeks, so you saved a couple dollars if you paid by the month, but not much. But that's what it was. And then a guy named my mother always wanted to open up a bed and breakfast upstairs. But times were hard back then. I mean, they barely made money. They started making a little money. We lived in an apartment when we first moved here. And in 1974, my parents moved into a house in Heritage. So things were getting better in town, and plus the store was getting busier with things my dad was doing. And so, but Mom wanted a bed and breakfast, but we couldn't afford to do it. Well, she died in June of 1985, and in November that same year, a few months after she passed, a guy named Green, he burnt down, if anybody knows the history in Annapolis, Bay Bowl was burned down, and he also burnt his family's house down. He was in Crownsville Mental Institution for a while. He came out, and he somehow, through talking to a buddy of his, found out, oh, there's rooms up from Chicken Ruth's. So he rented a room, and he started a fire in November in his closet in the room, and it gutted the whole second and third floor. It stayed empty for a year. I used to go down to the city dock. I'd go get some guys working off the work boats, because that's what they were back then still. I'd come up, and me and 3 or 4 guys, we gutted the whole building over about a 6 or 7 month period, working from like 4 at night when I got off work till like 8.
And this is just the upper parts of the
second and third floor we gutted. So that's what we did. It stayed empty for a little bit. We got a hold of some contractors. Johannes and Greco, I think was the name at the time. Karen Fazekas was our decorator. Paul Pearson was her dad. He used to own the Maryland Inn. Great family. She did the decorating and the design, and we opened the next year in 1986, February, or actually it was 1987, February, so it was a little more than a year. We opened up the Scottler Inn. 10 rooms, all private bath. And that was a bittersweet day, because my dad always knew my mom wanted a bed and breakfast, and we did it, but she wasn't there.
To your mother, which is...
We named it after my kids, Scott and Lauren, was the Scottler Inn. From the first month we opened it, it made, because we got some money from the insurance company for the fire, but we had to borrow about $300,000 at the time. From the first day it made the payments and paid it off in no time, and it's been successful ever since.
One thing I always had sort of admired about Chicken Ruth's was that there are very few restaurants in town that, well, let's say the restaurants in town for the most part either appeal to the tourist trade or to the local trade. And you've somehow figured out how to get them both. Because there's never a time, I mean, typically, okay, on a Saturday and Sunday, I watch all those crazy people waiting in line out on the sidewalk, and I go, no way in hell would I do that. And that's your tourist trade there. And it's other times of the week, obviously. But when I go in for lunch, if I go in at 1 or at 2, I'll run into the mayor or people from City Hall or from, employees of the city and just other friends that I know. And most places have a real difficult time. They're one or the other. Do you have any idea how that...
Well, what I think in any business, you want to treat everybody like family. And whether you have a clothing store or not, you want to treat them like you would be treated. And back in the day, it was all locals, if you remember. Back in the 60s, 70s, the city dock was not a tourist trap, not a tourist destination. The boats weren't down there. I say most of the places said they're tourist traps. They gear themselves towards tourists, a lot of the businesses.
Sure. Which
is wrong. Yeah. That's why there's so many empty spots on Main Street. Mm-hmm. Well, 2. 1 is because the second and third generations are jacking the rents up so high you can't afford it. So when they come in, they have to price themselves out. Or 2, they're gearing themselves towards tourists. So back in the day, I grew up as a local business shop, because that's all it was locals there. So if you treat everybody and you get to know people and you treat them like they're your friends and their family, and number 1, like you say, what is your employees and your customers? Well, you need to have your customers. So you treat them like you care about them, and you do. And so you get to know people, you get to know who they are, what they're about. They know you, so they want to come in because they feel comfortable. Like Cheers, you hear them, Yeah. So you treat everybody like their family. You treat everybody like they come in every day. Like you saw them just yesterday, even though you might not have seen them for a year, or you never seen them before. So if you treat them like family and you treat them right, they're going to keep coming back. So as a byproduct, when somebody walks in off the street that is a tourist, as the tourist trade started to grow, when the work boats kind of went away and the other boats came in, then those people like, my God, this is great. He acts like he knows me. How are you doing today? You talk to him. What brings you to town today? Do you live in town? No, you don't live in town. Where do you live? Oh, really? What brings you here? And you talk to people like you care about them, because you do, because that's how you make a living. And probably, except for a few school friends, everybody that we know or we associate with are people that we meet through the store. So they really are your friends. I mean, it's not like you're not making anything up. And you can't fake that all day long. You can't, because you can't come, just like when you work at your job, no matter who you are or what you do. However you run your life at your job, or you run your life at home to your family, that's the same way you're going to be at the job, or vice versa. You're not Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. You really can't do that all the time.
No, you're absolutely right.
So it has to be in you, in your blood, and what you feel and what you like. so that you treat people like that, and they're going to keep coming back.
I'd like to get you and Ralph Crosby together in a room and just discuss old Annapolis and what you've seen and whatnot. He's got fascinating stories.
Oh, it's changed a lot. But
with everything. Keith, the new owner, how did he come into the picture? I know you said he was a customer. Just how did that whole evolve? I mean, obviously you were looking for an exit strategy. I think certainly 2 years ago, I remember we talked when I was with R&R. You came in and we discussed your 50. You, Beth, and Maddie, your Yorkie Poo came in and we talked about the 50th anniversary. And certainly, I don't want to say you're old, but I mean, you've been hustling tables since you've been 8 years old. And at some point, retirement was obviously on your thing. But how did it come about that Keith became involved?
Yeah, I didn't think it would be so soon, but so someone wanted a restaurant 2 years ago, about the time we spoke, maybe a little bit after that. It was December 2 years ago, so not quite 2 years ago. It was a local person in town, and so a broker came in and said, hey, I know somebody that wants to buy your restaurant. I said, not for sale. I said, anything's for sale for the right price. I said, well, maybe, but at the moment not. But then I'm getting older, so I'm thinking maybe. At some point it will be, so I'll talk to them, you never know. I don't think they're going to be able to offer what we want, but okay. So he put me in touch with the fella, and nice family in town. I don't want to say who they are, but it's a family that's been in town forever, and they wanted their son to buy the restaurant, or son-in-law, and we started talking, and he put together a contract, and after a few months of going back and forth, he had nothing to do with anything else. He just couldn't come up with the money. Mm-hmm. So it just dwindled out and went away, and that was it. Well, because of that, it was a local broker. That family was local. Somehow the word gets out. That broker was talking. Now that he knew I was talking to somebody, now they're talking to other people and say, hey,
he's talking.
Might be for, well, it spread rumors a little bit. Now people say, no, it's not for sale. Whatever. But everything's for sale for the right price, but it's not. Because we didn't put it up on the market, whatever. So whatever, that went by the wayside. So people knew a little bit something. So somehow along the way, there was a broker in Baltimore that knew my brother-in-law and said, I hear your brother-in-law's restaurant's for sale. I said, I don't think so. I would have known about that. So he calls me up and he said, I hear it's for sale. I said, well, here's what happened. So he told the broker, here's what happened, so no, it's not for sale. It's not listed. Well, so if I can know a person that wants to sell it, will he sell it? So he said, you got to talk to him about it. So he calls me up and says, I think I know the perfect guy for your restaurant. I said, it's not for sale. He said, well, I know it is for the right price. I said, I guess. Stupid scenario, but that's how it went. And he said, if I can get the right person, would you sell it? I said, yeah, but I don't want to advertise. Nobody to know. It's nothing. It's not for sale. I don't want to be in that atmosphere where people got to be talking to me about it. I'm not ready yet. But if you got the right person, then I can make it work. Sure enough, he comes back a couple weeks later. This fellow was looking for a restaurant or a bed and breakfast. He has five guys restaurants. He's very successful. He was in the big corporate world for many years, and he decided to get out of corporate world. He wanted to be more with people. So he bought 5 guys restaurants, but it turns out that's kind of like, I got restaurants, I just have managers run them. I'm not dealing with anybody. It's a business thing. But he loves them, he likes them, he make money. But he wanted to have a bed and breakfast or a family restaurant. So he told this broker. They were looking for a couple of years and couldn't find the right place. And the broker said, hey, I got this place. He said, nah, it's not for sale. I go in here all the time. That's not for sale. I said, I'm telling you, you come up with this, it can be for sale. I said, no way. So I said, I want it. So he put in an offer basically where it made it fair. And we looked at it, and I met him. And he said, Ted, I've been coming here. I love this place. I live in Northern Virginia. Mm-hmm. But obviously I'm going to move to Annapolis if I can get chicken roosts. But I come in here, and when I come in here and I have a lady friend or friends with me and a woman, you always do magic and you always pull a handkerchief out behind your ear and try and pick the women up from me. He said, so the only way I can bring my women, I want to come in for crab cakes because I love this place. It's the best crab cakes anywhere. He said, the only way I can come in is if I get rid of you because you don't pick my women up. So I'll buy the restaurant and I'll get rid of you. Kind of joking. But he loves the restaurant. He loves the crab cakes. He wants to take that to the next level with shipping and all, which we do a lot of.
Right. I know
it certainly can grow. Yeah, big time. And he just loves the atmosphere, the people, and the bed and breakfast. So we came to an agreement, and he's just been a pleasure. I've met him probably in March. Yeah, March I met him, I guess. We signed our contract I met him in April. February I met him. We signed our agreement. After about a month of talking back and forth, we signed an agreement in March. But there was a lot of stuff to do in between.
Absolutely.
And it wasn't for sure yet, even though we had like a contract. But there's a lot to do to let him know what the place is really about. And so we really got to know each other. And he is just a great down-to-earth person. wants to keep everything the same way it is.
Now, is he going to continue to be the owner-operator? You mentioned that as far as you know, I mean, you said he's got managers for all the Five Guys and whatnot.
Yeah, he wants to be an operator. I work, now, the last 2 years, I've been working 5 days a week. My whole life, I work 6 days a week.
Half day.
Yeah, so I work half week.
Half time.
Yeah, so for me, an extra day was great. So, but he's going to work 5 days a week. In the beginning, he'll be there more, but he'll work 5 days a week, and he wants to be there to do just what I do, meet and greet people and talk to them. And
you teaching him your magic tricks?
If he wants, we could, but I don't think he's going to do magic. He has his own, like my dad had a personality, and he told jokes. I had a personality, I did magic. So he'll have his own personality. And he is a great guy, he's personable. So he'll do it. Behind the scenes, there's a lot of great things we talked about. Some that I wanted to do, but I wouldn't do because I don't like computers. I don't like new technology. I like old stuff. That's why I wanted to retire, because all I want to do is work on my antique cars. And he'll do some things in the back office and for the bed and breakfast, which you really won't see, but it'll make it much better for people as far as reservations and all that.
Great.
So there are some things. But in the restaurant itself, when you physically walk in, other than having a taller, better-looking, smarter guy, maybe cleaner place, I don't think you'll see anything different. His service, because he's keeping everybody, the staff, and like people say, oh, change. There will be, I'm sure, some new items. There's 2 items in particular I tell him that I think I'm not been happy with and I'm not been able to solve. 2 particular items I wanted to do better in the restaurant, 2 food items. But the rest of the food I think is great. And then he had some ideas about 1 or 2 food items to bring in that he might want to bring in, something with a pancake with pineapples, or I think it was, or something like that. But a couple items that you bring in, but people say, oh my God, change. When I took over in 1980 from my dad, I was running it because when mom got sick and she got really sick in the early 80s is when I started running everything, even though my dad still owned it. We had a 2-page menu, literally, in 1979 or 80. Now we have a 10-page menu. So there's been a lot of change in the restaurant. And there's been things that we added, things that we took off. So other than the ambience and the service, that we don't change. But menu items, there's a lot to be desired and always new things out there. I mean, a 3-pound burger, a 6-pound milkshake, crab cakes. We had a small one, but didn't have the big jumbo lump. All the omelets. We had egg platters. Now we have all kinds of crazy omelets, pastrami omelets, crab omelets, eggs Benedict with crab that we didn't have. So he's going to definitely, he's a foodie like I was, and he likes going out to places and seeing what they do right and then see how you can do it better. And again, because we were good, there's things that I know were good. Corned beef Reuben was always there. You don't change that.
Right. But
you add something to it, and that brings more people in. So I think it'll be good for him, good for the restaurant, good for the town.
Can you? I don't know whether you can do this or not, but in your years there, what's your takeaway? What's your best memory of Chicken Roost from your time there, or a few? I mean, is there anything that stands out, or there's too many to figure it out?
They're just. I mean, to me, it was. I worked with my mom and dad, and then I worked with my wife through the years, like my parents worked together. They worked a little bit differently because my mom had to work and was there every day. My wife didn't have to work because times changed, but she was there, does all the bookkeeping and payroll, so she was there a lot. She basically worked full time, but nobody saw her as much because she was in the basement.
She was in the face.
Yeah, but the last so many years she was able to come upstairs more because you put things on computer. Now she freed herself up more because everything was done by hand back in the day. So now a computer made things faster and easier. So now she got up on the floor more and got to meet and greet people and enjoy the restaurant and really like it and love it the way I did, opposed to just having to do the bookwork. I don't know. There's so many. I mean, God, there's tons of things that were good and bad, but mostly good.
Is there anything real bad that sticks? I mean, obviously, I'm going to
guess no. I mean, the fire, my mom passing away, my dad passing away, but really in the restaurant, not other than the fire, nothing bad. It was all good. But me working with and seeing so many locals, there's so many people. Little girl named Erin Balowsy, and her dad Scott come in every single Saturday. She's now 20 or so. She goes to Florida State. She's coming in since she was, 4 or 5 years old. We used to go downstairs and I'd walk her down. We'd go and walk in the walk-in freezer and she'd open the box, she'd get a chocolate top out of it where we keep them frozen. And we'd come back up. Then she'd have a couple friends would come in. We'd take them down and they'd come up. She learned to do the pledge as a little kid. And her dad and her were one of the first people I called when I sold the store. Governor Mandel would come in every day. I'll never forget my dad. When he first became governor, my mother just walked over, sat down next to him. So, Gov, how's it feel? Because he was a regular customer. And my dad's like, Ruth, you can't sit down with the governor. That's the governor. I was like, he's a man like we are.
Who's he?
People.
How did he put his pants on?
And they treat him, the governors would come in, Governor Schaefer, Governor Mandel, Governor Ehrlich. These guys would come in and treat my parents like they were royalty, and they were the ones that were the to people. Through the years, movie stars came in and stuff, and they would come up and shake my hand. Through the years, obviously it was my parents in the beginning and then mine later, and treat you like you're somebody, but they're the ones that are celebrities. And one great time I remember going to which happened twice in my life, Commander Solomon was a commander at the Naval Academy, and he invited my dad to the Christmas dinner at the Naval Academy. And back in the day, it was only men, right? So the midshipmen would invite normally their dads or an uncle or whatever.
Right.
So Commander Solomon was there, and he had a son at the academy. So Commander Solomon was able to invite someone. He invited my dad, and his son, a midshipman, invited me. So we both went to the dinner. We sat at the table, and they actually introduced people, a couple people, the superintendent, the commandant, and this Commander Solomon. I guess whatever rank he was allowed to introduce a guest. And they introduced my dad from Chicken Ruth's, and man, the whole midshipmen, they stood up and applauded, and I was taken back. Whoa, my dad's pretty cool. 20 years later or so, I was a little kid then, and now I'm older, and my son is like 12 years old, Scott. And we get invited by the commandant, Commander Allen, which is now General Allen, retired. Okay. And he invited Scott and I. He was allowed whoever he wanted. So we both came. We're sitting at a table with some generals from like Argentina or something, and his staff, and the superintendent had some big wig from like the Pentagon. So everybody's quiet. The superintendent makes a speech, and he talks, and he introduces his guests, and all the midshipmen are sitting all straight up, and they like a little thing, and then the commandant welcomes everybody, introduces general and his staff, and they're all sitting there. A little like you're at a golfing hour, right. Golfing, got to be real quiet, you know. And then all of a sudden he said, "Oh, and we got Ted and his son Scott, the owners from Chicken Roost Deli, and man, you would have thought they won the Army-Navy game."
Oh, that's great.
And they lit up, they stood up, they cheered, and then they had to ring the bell to get them all to shut up and sit down. And we leave, and Scott says, "My God, Dad, whoa, they really love you." I said, "No, you don't understand. That's what you have to know about life. They don't love you. They love what you stand for. And the restaurant is what they know about. I guarantee if you ask 3/4 of mids, they never heard of Chicken Roost. Or they never heard of me or you, but they know what Chicken Roost is.
Right.
So they love the store. So you don't let it go to your head. It's not you, it's the business, it's the employees, it's the atmosphere."
You're out. You're a famous Annapolitan. What's your sandwich? What's the Ted Levitt going to be?
Oh, I don't know. I don't need a
Come
sandwich.
on, man. You ask this to everybody that comes in there.
I mean, I eat all the time. I eat is the number 23, which is pastrami, corned beef, and Swiss. I eat almost once a week. But our crab cake is the most famous. The Reubens are good. They're great. But I just like the corned beef, pastrami, and Swiss.
Corned beef, pastrami, and Swiss. It's no longer going to be a number 27. It's going to be a Ted Levitt.
No, I don't. What is the 20? The 23, I forget whose name is on it. I got it, and I made him up. I should remember, right? Or they made him up. They get what they want. So I forget who has the 23 right now. I know it was Mickey Steinberg years ago, but then the Jewish Times said he had meat and dairy mixed together, so he called me up and said, "I got to change that right away."
Right.
I forget who it is now, but yeah, it's neat. It's fun. It's been a great ride. It's been living the American dream. I used to have a pretzel company. That's what we used to have our slogan was, and it truly was. I mean, you meet people, you see people. I went out yesterday. I had to go to Home Depot and Safeway to get some stuff because it's a Jewish holiday last night. My wife asked me to get, while I was out, where I pick up something. So I went to Safeway while I had to go to Home Depot. And I picked up a cable, and I met like 3 or 4 people. As soon as I walked in the door, one lady that was greeting people just started crying and gave me a hug. That comes in the restaurant all the time. I saw 2 people while I was shopping, came up to me and stopped me and said, how nice it was. And then went to Safeway, the same thing happened, a couple people. So it is really nice to be known there, and in a good way. They're your friends. But I still won't. I'll probably still go in the mornings, like our breakfast crew that I'd always sit and listen to. I'll go in the mornings by 8:30 and have breakfast with them, be there for the pledge.
Right.
And then I'll come home and work on my antique cars.
All right, let's talk about your antique cars. You started Faces of Valor
10 years ago.
So.
No, I'm sorry. We had our first event 9 years ago. This is our 10th year coming up.
Now, tell us about Faces of Valor. It's a foundation that you've started to honor the memory of the people that gave their lives on 9/11, primarily the firefighters and the police officers.
Well, it's mainly our military, police, fire, and EMS, kind of all equal.
Okay.
It's so we've been doing the pledge. Me and my dad decided to do it in 1989 just because we can. Everybody's glass is half empty, ours is half full. Yeah, so we do the pledge of the flag every day, and we've been doing it for over 29 years. Just because we can. We're proud. We live in a city with the military, the Naval Academy, And you do the pledge. You start the day off right. There's nothing wrong with that. You're not saying you're a better country than anybody. You're not. It's just, you do the pledge, you think about yourself, and you say, hey, I'm proud to be in a great country.
Everybody of a certain age started their mornings off with the pledge.
Yeah.
They don't do that now, but it's...
I think they should, because when you do that, you're not saying, I mean, you truly, if you want to look at the words to anything, if you want to, like, everybody's too politically correct now.
Sure.
Just enjoy it. What is the pledge? You know, you're not saying, oh my God, I'm going to die for the country. I'm pledging my allegiance. I'm proud to be an American. It's nice. I wake up. I got a job. I got a family. I'm healthy. I can do that here. I can do it in a lot of places, but I for sure can do it here.
Right.
And it's nice. Even when you say the prayer. I'm Jewish. I went to schools. When I lived in Baltimore, it was predominantly Jewish. But when I came to Annapolis, they weren't doing like a non-secular prayer. But my parents didn't complain about it, make a big deal about it. I went to school. They said the prayer, and it might say whatever, Jesus Christ, amen. Right. But that's not a bad, that's a good thing. But that's because that's what the masses is. The country is basically a Christian nation overall. The majority was. And that's how it came about. But you say a prayer, hey, I'm thankful, I'm healthy, everything's good. I mean, it'd be nice if they could just say a non-denominational prayer now and just forget about all this other stuff and not cut it out completely, because it does make the kids think, you know. And when you do the pledge, you're saying, hey, I'm really great, I'm happy. And now if you're in a bad mood when you come in to work or when you wake up, after you say a little prayer, say thank you to whoever I'm praying to, whatever you want to say, and I'm glad I'm healthy, I'm going to work hard today, and it's going to be a good day. You put yourself off on the right start. Because of the pledge, my wife and I decided years later, after we started the pledge, which was 14 years ago, we wanted to do something different. And we wanted to not just walk the walk or talk the talk, we wanted to walk the walk. So I started, the first thing I did was I had a 31 Buick, which was the third antique car I ever bought, the second one. And I decided that I'm going to paint that car pearl white and then ghost an American flag over it. And put pictures of faces on it from we have faces, 43 faces on the car from World War II till today. Represents all the confrontations our country's had in between, and from every service branch, including fire, police and EMS, Marines, Army, everything. With that car, we were going to ride around town, raise a couple bucks, and then donate it to some soldier or policeman that was injured. As it took time to build the car, we realized the car was coming together. There was a little bit of buzz about it and talk about it. I'm like, well, we might be able to do more than just raise $5,000 and give it to somebody and then just have the car for fun. So one thing led to another. Next thing you know, we put up a foundation, 501c3, and it is set up, and it will be forever. Only you can volunteer, and no one can get paid. If you get paid, you don't work with us. We're not paying anybody to work. You volunteer, just like the old days. That's what people did. And we have a big event every year. We have a motorcycle ride, a car show, and a family picnic. And we're averaging now, we started out the first year $5,500. Now we're averaging about $100,000 a year we raise.
And what are your funds raised go to? Are you still distributing them to
Absolutely. Every year we have one or two.
Or do they go to organizations?
No, we go directly to the individual. From 2 or 3 years, we got set up a garage. These guys want to be mechanics. A couple guys that were blown up in Iraq, Afghanistan. And we bought complete lifts, welders, tool chest, every tool imaginable, hand tool, power tool. Set a whole garage up for these kids, these young men. 3 or 4 guys we did that for. One fella right here he's around the corner here, I forget the name of the street. He lives local now. He was blown up, triple amputee, 2 legs, 1 arm, just messed up everywhere else. We finished his whole basement off. Put a gym in for him, man cave with TV and all this furniture and all.
And then you've got to have the accessibility issues and everything else.
Yeah, now his house was built accessible for him, so his basement was ready. He already had an elevator. That's Adam Keys. Another guy, Luis Valentine, lives right in Glen Burnie, right not far from Double T Diner up there on Mountain Road.
Right.
He had an accessibility house, but they never had an elevator, so he could never go in the basement. So it was just a block concrete basement he couldn't use. It was for storage. So we actually put an elevator in his house and finished his basement off. So, and that was about $80,000.
So how does somebody become the beneficiary of Faces of Valor? I mean, is there a application?
Not really. We talk to people through the guys we know. You meet a lot of guys at Walter Reed.
Right.
And we speak to a lot of policemen, and you find out who needs something. And the guys tell you, hey, I got a buddy. And you talk to the buddy and say, hey, we'd like to honor you, and anything you need. You need a car. The guy we're honored this year, we bought him a brand new Suburban. We're going to be giving it to him in about a few weeks, sometime in October. We have the whole thing made accessible. The whole doors lift up, and he actually lifts him and puts him right in the front passenger seat. He's completely paralyzed from his neck down. Wow. This guy, Luis Avila. Has 3 children and a wife. But so the other guys told me, and one guy we met, Like, I don't know, I don't need anything, but you know what? So-and-so really needs stuff. He needs help. He needs this or that. So we kind of pick them that way. And this year we might have a policeman that we're going to honor, and maybe a soldier, or maybe just a policeman I know was wounded in the line of duty. We're still figuring it out if he needs anything or wants anything. So that's kind of how we find out.
And the events that you had, you said you have a motorcycle run?
Yep, we start out.
When
it's
is
every
that?
year. Every year is the fourth Sunday in June.
Okay.
The motorcycle ride starts out at the Outback, our classic car show. We have about over 300 cars.
And
that
Outback,
starts
we're
out
talking the Outback here in Annapolis?
on Forest Drive,
Okay.
the Outback. And then the car show starts out at the Elks in Edgewater, right in Route 2 here.
Right.
So the car show is there with the family picnic. The motorcycles start out at the Outback, and then they ride up, get on Route 50, down through town, up Main Street, West Street, and then they end up at the Elks. So they escort in the honoree, whoever we're honoring. They end up where the car show is. There's already 500-600 people with cars and for the picnic, so they're there to honor, clap, and cheer him in when he comes in on the bike.
And then your second event is?
So that's normally every year we have that event. And then there's one coming up in November. I should know the right date. It's a Zumbathon.
Zumbathon.
Now we don't...
That's a word that didn't exist 10 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see, November... Oh, what is Veterans... Is it Veterans? Yeah, Veterans. When's
November
Veterans
11th,
Day?
is that?
Exactly. November 11th is the Zumbathon. So that's on Veterans Day every year.
Where's that going to be?
Or it's on a Saturday every year. This year it happens to end up on the 11th. And that's at Edgewater Fitness.
Okay.
And that's another group of folks that just say, hey, we want to do a Zumbathon. We want to find somewhere to raise the money. So this is to be their fourth or fifth year. And they just do it and donate the money to Faces of Valor. So we support them, but it's not our event, but it is our event because it's for Faith of Valor, yeah.
Well, that's fine. And obviously, I guess you can take donations if somebody wanted to write a check.
All year long, we promote it a little bit on our website and facesofvalorusa.org. I mean, but as working, without a doubt, I mean, now that I'm not working, I'll hopefully be able to step it up and even raise more money, and we can honor more people.
Well, I saw that you said that you're going to be tinkering with your cars.
Yeah, my first car I was 17 in high school. I found the car in the woods. My parents said, that's so cool. That looks like the car we had. I had a car just like that. When we got married, Mom and I bought a 33 Dodge for $75. We spray painted it by hand, and we kept it for about 5 years, and then we sold it. I don't know where it got to. Well, when I did the title research, that was the car.
The actual car?
I still own the car today, sitting in my garage.
That your mom and dad bought for $75?
I bought for $75, except when they bought it, it was driving. When I bought it, it was a tree growing up through the center. And it took me 3 years to get it running. And I got a picture of my parents standing up through the roof, because the canvas roof was rotted away. I was sitting on the milk crate from the deli in the car. That was my seat, because the seats were rotted out and gone. And I was driving them around my neighborhood in Heritage. And that car I still have in my basement.
That's phenomenal.
After that, then I bought the Buick. That's the Face of Valor car. But I bought it and made it an everyday car for me. So for 5 years, I commuted to work in that car.
Now, the Face of Valor car, and I've seen it, it's a spectacular car. And
it's a beautiful car, yeah.
If anybody who's listening to this has ever seen it, you know that you've seen it. Did you do just the mechanical stuff, or did you do the entire...
Wayne Everett, a policeman in Annapolis, retired police, he was working then, I guess he's still working, believe it or not. Over 50 years in Annapolis City Police, Wayne Everett is. He restores antique cars, so he basically rebuilt it. It was all original. And again, I don't like street rods, but I needed something to drive every day, so I took it to Wayne, and he rebuilt, put a new engine and everything in it, frame, original frame and body, but just a new engine and suspension, so that way I could drive it every day. And I just kind of worked with him a little bit. He taught me a lot, but he did all the work.
Okay.
And it was restored. So for 20 years, I drove it like that, and it was black, and it was like a street rod, but I got back and forth to work. And then when I made it Faces of Valor, then I did everything. I took everything completely apart. The engine, rebuilt it, the frame, everything down to the bare frame, redid it, and then painted it, and then an airbrush artist did the work on it. Like you said, if you see it, you know it, because it has a flag over it, and it's pretty.
Without a doubt, probably one of the most unique vehicles in the country.
Yeah.
I agree.
So that car was my second car, and then after that, I bought a Rolls Royce as junk, like I did the Dodge, and took 7 years to do that. And now I'm up to 12 cars. I buy the cars normally wrecked up, messed up, rusted out, and I take my time and I restore them. And pretty much since my mother died in June of '85, so it's 32 years now, I don't watch TV. So I go downstairs in my workshop and I work on my cars. I learned how to weld, paint. Butch Sutton is from S&S Auto. They've taught me a lot. Other people, and I just learned from people. I'm not a mechanic by any stretch, so I always have to ask Butch and ask a lot of other people around how you do things. But I'm learning as I go.
And your wife tolerates your habit?
Yeah. She, I guess it keeps me out of her hair, you know. So, but I love working on antique cars. I got 12, and as a matter of fact, the deck on the back of my house is coming down next week or the week after, and we're building an 8-car garage across the back. Wow. So I have 12 underneath my house now. It's a big garage under my house now. And you can't see it from the street, but I got 12 cars, well, actually 9 there. 1 under my deck, 2 in my other garage. But when I get the new garage built, I'll have plenty of room for everything I have, spread them out, and then have room for a few more cars. And they're all original when I build them.
I'll tell you, Ted Levitt, you an absolutely incredible story.
Very lucky.
Not just a story, but a success story that's half written at this point. Because you've got Faces of Valor, which is continuing on, but you've left quite a legacy with Chicken Roost. Obviously left it in good hands with Keith. You're going to sit down there, I guess, in a couple of weeks. I read in the Capitol that you've got about a 2-week period where you've got to do a transition, but then I guess in a couple of weeks you can probably sit down there as a customer.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that, because for as much as I love the customers and working with them and serving them, I'm like, when we go out to dinner, can't go anywhere like it's the deli where you get service and friendship and all that. And so I don't go there, because normally when I go there, my wife says, all you do is get up and start working. And I'm like, okay, I understand. But to go there now, what everybody says they like about the restaurant, because even though people say, oh, it's you, it was your dad, it's the restaurant. And I think Keith will be the next person. So I'll be able to go and enjoy what everybody else in town's been enjoying for 52 years. I'll be able to enjoy like they have. And just enjoy it as a customer. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I certainly hope that Annapolis can give you back half of what you've really given the city for these many years. And I don't want to say just you, because it's certainly your mom and your dad as well that have done that.
And my wife has been we were the team that they were, so we've been lucky.
Given an awful lot to the city. I don't speak on behalf of the city, but I think I do. But thank you, and I wish you all the success in restoring your cars and filling up your new 8-car garage, which is a little bit ridiculous, but that's what a great success story. And I thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you. I'm honored. Thank you.
When a ring from the United States Naval Academy comes into Zachary's for a center stone, it always makes us wonder, where's this one going? Where's this one been? A nuclear sub in the North Atlantic, a carrier deck in the South Pacific, the moon? 52 astronauts are Academy graduates, from Iwo Jima to Okinawa, Corregidor to the Coral Sea, Midway to the Persian Gulf, Congress to the White House. These rings go where America goes. 73 that went to war were awarded the Medal of Honor. But wherever they go, wherever they may serve, our admiration goes with them.
Zachary's. Online at zacharysjewelers.com. More than a jewelry store, a jeweler.
And there you have it. Ted Levitt from the living room of his home. What a fascinating guy. What a great story. What a great bunch of insight into the city of Annapolis, Maryland, and people in general. After our interview, he took me down into his basement, which is just a gigantic playground, to be honest with you. Let's be truthful here. He has a wonderful train layout. I don't remember whether it was HO or N gauge. He's taken businesses that are important to him that are in the town and recreated them in his train layout. He's got a hardware store with True Value with Stevens Hardware. We looked into his quote-unquote garage, which has classic cars just stacked up all over the place in various stages, and I don't want to say disrepair, but they're in various stages of restoration, including his Faces of Valor car, which is the most spectacular car, the most unique car that you're ever going to see. Walked around, he showed me where this big 8-car garage is going to go in the back of his house so he can expand his car restoration hobby in his retirement. And I just think it's such a fascinating story of a kid that comes up with some learning disabilities, some dyslexia, does what he needs to do to get it done, takes over a successful business from his father, puts his own spin on it, grows it, is able to sell it, holds out to sell it till he finds the right person because he cares for the town and his community so much. Ted, all I can say is thank you. Enjoy your retirement. You're listening to the Maryland Crabs, and if you want to follow us, you can do that. You can go to our website, which is themarylandcrabs.com. You can follow us on Twitter at MDCrabsPodcast. You can send us an email at info@themarylandcrabs.com. You can go on Facebook, of course, and find us on there. We have the Maryland Crabs both as a page and a group. You can go onto YouTube. You can get us anywhere you get your podcast. And do me a favor, do go and subscribe on Apple Podcast or Google Play. And while you're there, leave a rating or a review if you've got a few minutes just to write some words. They really help us out, and we really appreciate it. If you have an idea for something that we should do, an episode, a guest, a topic, send it in to us. info@themarylandcrabs.com. We get lots of great ideas from guests, and not just in Anne Arundel County or Annapolis. If you're listening to this in Prince George's County or out in Washington County or Allegheny County or out on the Eastern Shore, shoot us an email. Let us know what you're interested in, and we'll get right on it. Coming up next week, another really funny interview with a woman who is running for comptroller of the state of Maryland next year. If you're interested in local news to Annapolis, please make sure you check out the Eye on Annapolis Daily News Brief. It's a new podcast that I launched on September 1st, and it is produced Monday through Friday. It releases at noon, just like this podcast does, but it's a short 10-minute podcast which has local news, local events, local sports, local weather, all to Annapolis and Anne Arundel County. Check it out. Give me 10 minutes. We'll tell you what you need to know. You can find it on Apple Podcast, Google Play, and all those places that you normally get all the rest of your podcasts. Till next week, this is John Fernay and the slacking Tim Hamilton, who is at home still waiting for his furniture delivery, and we will see you next week.
This has been the Maryland Crabs Podcast with Tim Hamilton and John Fernay. Sure to follow them in all the regular places, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and online at themarylandcrabs.com. Take a moment to rate us on iTunes. Now, get the hell out of my kitchen. Seriously, go!
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.